Hey guys, on tonight's show we're going to be talking about haunted Washington, D.C. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday, if you can call it a happy Monday. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you have a paranormal need or you think you have a paranormal need, we can help you out. It might take us a while to get to you, but we can do that. And the way to contact us is just keep checking the internet. Just do that Google search, and we will pop up. Definitely pop up for you. You can contact us that way. Anyway, welcome to the show. We are broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok tonight. Welcome to California Haunts Radio TikTok. And this is one of the first live shows, other than our Sunday show, that we've done on TikTok. So I'm real excited tonight. Great topic tonight. Friday night, Nancy Mass was here. It was our casual Friday. And we were talking about the ghost of Tombstone. And everyone seemed to like it a lot, the whole show. So I decided tonight, because this is the night that was kind of like open for guests, that I would do something on Washington, D.C. I've heard stories over the years, been trying to get people on my actual show. Hello, TikTok, how's it going? Been trying to get people on my actual show to come on and talk about these ghosts, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So I thought, because of what we did Friday night, talking about the ghost of Tombstone and stuff, that I would kind of do the same thing. I started out the morning by taking a lot of notes. And I just got to the point where I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to grab a couple of websites, give them credit. There were just so many notes, I couldn't get them all on my sheets, okay? Because I have a pad thing over here off to my left that I can take notes on. And it just got to the point where I just could not take enough notes. I just didn't have enough room. Plus, the lighting in here, to have this lighting is dim. By the time it reaches me, it's dim, okay? It lights up the back and everything, but it's dim. So my issue was that I couldn't see it anyway, even if I wrote it down, because it's just too dark. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it like I did Friday. I'm going to give the website credit and just read the different information from the website. So that's what tonight's going to happen tonight, okay? Again, if you're watching from Facebook and you're watching from YouTube and you're watching from Twitch, please be sure to hit that follow button if you like what you see and hear tonight. I'd really appreciate it. Also, show me some love, leave me a thumbs up, that kind of thing, to let me know how well you like the show, and chat and comment in the chat room. I'm eager to see your comments. TikTok, double tap that screen if you like what you hear and see tonight. I'm going to be talking about haunted Washington, D.C. So double tap that screen. If you like ghost stories, this is the place to be. If you like ghosts and things like that. So double tap that screen and be sure to share this. Everybody, that goes for everybody. Share it as I'm doing it. Share the show as I'm doing it, okay? Be sure to share it and chat amongst yourselves. I'll try to read the TikTok comments. Can't see them all that great. I'm devising a some kind of magnification so I can actually see the comments on TikTok. Let me double check. I don't want anything lifting up. I had to do this really weird rig to get this thing for TikTok to hold my phone in position. Okay, so when we think about ghosts, Halloween's coming, and I do have an event coming up, and it's going to be kind of fun. I'm going to be launching a new show on Saturday nights, and I wanted to do a thing where it was like campfire stories, only we're calling it Ghost Stories in the Dark. And with this show, and TikTok will be a part of this show as well, I want to tell stories, what I think are credible ghost stories, which will come from the members of our law enforcement, EMTs, hospitals, things like that. So it's all going to be from rescue personnel, because they are really good observers. It's just like myself being a journalist. I am trained to look at things logically and whatnot. And so are police and others like nurses and stuff. So I've got some people together that are going to get me some stories. And so what I decided to do to launch the show, because Halloween is coming, we're always on here trying to get funding to support our show. So what I thought of doing was, for some of you, it's going to be free. The people that are members of the Patreon, okay, my Patreon members. But for others, what I'm going to do is it's going to be $15 per person. It's going to be an event on a Saturday night, and I'm going to launch the show that way. And that'll be coming in closer to Halloween, maybe the first or second week of October. So that's coming up. I'm going to have that information up tonight, and I'll be starting to advertise that. I'm going to be advertising it in quite a few places. So, yeah. So I'm really excited about things, and yeah, really, really, really excited. It looks like in my broadcast, you know what? I gotta check something really quick, okay? It looks like I'm not broadcasting to YouTube tonight. Hang on a second. Let me look. I should be on YouTube. Seeing, maybe it is YouTube. I'm not seeing Twitch. I gotta see what's going on. Oh, maybe I am on YouTube. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. No, I'm on YouTube tonight. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm gonna take that off. It looks like YouTube. Let's see if it tells me. Yeah. Okay, I thought maybe I was just on Twitch tonight, over here. Anyway, so we're gonna get the show going, and like I said earlier in the day, I started gather my notes for the show, and as I was doing it, I have like 8.5 by 11 wipe off pages that I use. Like over here, it tells me who the guest is and who the next guest is going to be. On this side, I have another board that hangs here, that with another wipe off 8.5 by 11 sheet that kind of has notes, from the I'm going to say client from the guest, so that I can keep on track and stuff. So I started to do that. The next thing I knew, I had like eight things in notes. So I decided to just pick a couple of websites and read off of that. So that's what we're going to do tonight. But we're going to be talking about haunted Washington D.C. Now everybody knows the stories. Before I start in, there's a lot of stories about the White House and the Lincoln bedroom and things like that. And I've heard the ones about Dolly Madison, you know, haunting the White House. But there's also other places in Washington besides that, including Ford Theater, where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. All right, so we're going to get into all those things, but I'm going to make sure that I give credit to the websites where I'm getting this stuff off of, so you guys know that you can go check over there, and then the Facebook police, the YouTube police, and all that know that that it's all legit, that I took them off these websites. All right. Over here on TikTok, I do have a goal of 100 Lucy the Llamas. If you like what you hear tonight, shoot me a llama. You don't have to, or subscribe. Okay, you can become part of my boo crew. That's what I call you guys over here on on TikTok. It's my boo crew. So here we go. Let's get some haunted stories in. Like my intro says, that you guys don't hear over here is get your popcorn and snacks, and put your feet back, grab some wine, hot cocoa, whatever, and dim those lights, and let's tell some ghost stories. So the first website we're going to visit is doghouse.com. It's called doghouse.com. 10 haunted locations in Washington, D.C. So let's talk about those. Like I said, I was starting to take notes off this site, but again, I had major issues because there were just so many places in Washington that have ghosts. So it just got to the point where I just couldn't take notes anymore. Just no room to do it. So we're going to talk about the nation's capital. The Capitol building, of course, has a lot of history. The Chambers of Commerce are there. The Chambers of Congress are there. And there have been deaths in the chamber. Not so much the chambers, but in the building. And one that was really notable in here, that I can see in here, the second president of the United States, John Quincy Adams. I'm sorry, the sixth president of the United States, John Quincy Adams. He suffered a stroke, and he died in the speaker's room. Somewhere, I guess the speakers, there's like several rooms that compose the rooms. So he died in the speaker's area, where the speaker hangs out. So this is where Mr. Johnson right now is the speaker. Nancy Pelosi was the speaker, right? So this is where he hangs out, and so they have seen him and he's been heard yelling no in the speaker's chamber. Kind of creepy. The other one, there's one that I have heard of that's a fairly famous one. There supposedly is the ghost of a black cat, and this black cat walks the halls of the Capitol, but it only does it during time just before something really bad happens to within the United States. Like for instance, John F. Kennedy, before John F. Kennedy got assassinated, people saw this cat walking the halls. Um, John Adams, same thing. Before he had his stroke, they saw this cat walking the halls of the Capitol. All right. The stock market crashed in 1929. Cat was seen before the stock market crashed. So that's kind of interesting. And remember, this is from doghouse.com that I'm getting this information from. So it's very interesting, that this is there. But I've heard a lot of stories about this black cat. In fact, it's one of the most famous stories of the haunting of the U.S. Capitol. Okay, but it's uncommon if such sightings ever occurred recently. But some might take heed of the dark time ahead if a black cat appears on the Capitol grounds. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, of course, we're going to head over to the White House. Not head to the White House, but we're going to go into the White House here. Talk about the ghosts in the White House. I'm going to take this directly from doghouse.com. The White House was home to 44 of the 45 U.S. presidents. I think this is outdated, so obviously we're beyond that now. Only George Washington did not occupy the White House, but who would have thought that 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue was such a haunted place? Many ghosts continue to be attracted to the seat of power. For the person with the most important job in the world, Dolly Madison, maybe a fixture of the hallowed halls after her death 200 years ago. There's been a lot of reports of presidents and staff members seeing Dolly Madison. Wouldn't that be weird? That'd be kind of, to me, that'd be creepy. See her wandering around. Other ghosts, and this is stuff, and you've probably heard about this, and so we're going to cover this. Have been seen. Abraham Lincoln. He has been seen long after he died. Okay, Bess Truman, who was a first lady during the presidency of her husband, said that she heard rattling outside the Lincoln bedroom, and felt a presence outside of that, and also felt a presence. Now, Mrs. Truman wasn't alone in all this. The first lady before her, Eleanor Roosevelt, also had what she thought were encounters with Mr. Lincoln, saying that she would often feel a presence outside that Lincoln bedroom. There's also reports of people that have stayed overnight, and that's not on here. Okay, this is stuff that I have done research over the years. There's reports of people that have stayed overnight at the White House in that Lincoln bedroom, have woken up at night with Abraham Lincoln standing over them, staring down at them while they were in bed or trying to sleep. So that goes on pretty frequently. Now, according to Mrs. Roosevelt, her dog would bark for no apparent reason at times. All right. But most reports come from a huge list of dignitaries that have either come and visited the White House because they stay, again, in the Lincoln bedroom. One of the more recent reports was from Maureen Reagan, the daughter of President Ronald Reagan, who believed she saw a ghostly figure standing in the White House hallway, once again outside of the Lincoln bedroom. All right? All right. The last known presence reported was Maureen Reagan, the daughter of President Reagan. Okay. Believed to see a figure standing. It just repeated itself. So, the White House is on. I could see why, though, because you know what? The presidents love what they did so much that they don't want to leave, right? They just don't want to leave. So it makes a lot of sense that they did this. Now, there's a place in Washington called the Octagon House, and it's shaped how? Like an octagon. And there's reported hauntings in there. And it said, if the spirit of Dolly Madison is not making herself felt on the White House grounds, she'll probably be seen at the Octagon House. Her husband, then President James Madison, and herself resided here shortly after the White House burned down during the War of 1812. That's right, it did burn down at one time. Before that, it was the home of Colonel John Taylor and his family, who built this oddly shaped building. Read why it was called the Octagon Building, even though it only had 6 sides. Okay. And aside from Dolly Madison, and I didn't realize her name was spelled with an E-Y. I always thought it was spelled, D-O-L-L-Y, like Dolly, right? Besides Dolly Madison being an unwelcome presence, others have heard bells ringing for no apparent reason, and even some screams that belong to young girls. The screams could be from the spirits of the daughter of Colonel Taylor. One of these girls is said to have um, died died here at the house after falling over a stairway railing and plunging to her death uh, on the wood floor below. So that's interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, if you've been to Washington, you know that I can't talk today. I don't know why. If you've ever been to Washington, I haven't been to Washington, but I know about Washington. The Smithsonian Castle, the Smithsonian Museum, right? Well, that's haunted as well, which makes sense. Think of all the stuff that they have, within their walls, the antiques that they've collected over the years from TV shows or whatever else they've collected, right? And think of all the stuff that might be attached to that, because spirits will attach to objects, furniture and things like that. Of all the museums in Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian is probably the most famous. It's certainly the largest. It has 27 million square feet across its 17 locations, and also the National Zoo. Okay? But it could also be one of the most haunted museums. All right? Again, this is from doghouse.com. The stories of ghosts wandering the halls of the Smithsonian span many, many years. One of the most famous ghosts is that of James Smithson himself, an Englishman who never visited the U.S., yet left his considerable fortune to the institution he never visited. The act of spite was to snub the family that never really considered him one of their own. Okay? In 1973, a museum curator at the Smithsonian took it upon himself to open the coffin that contained the remains of Smithson. Some doubts have been raised as to the contents of the casket. His bones were indeed present, but he was reinterred in a small cemetery again at an unknown gravesite. Paleontologist Fielding B. Meek lived with his cat in small accommodations under the stairs in the Smithsonian. An unhappy man with mournful eyes, he was moved away from his usual quarters. He became ill, died, and yet still roams the halls looking for more fascinating conversation about science. There is so much history on display at one of the many museums that make up the Smithsonian. People are drawn there as well as ghosts, and that's true. The Smithsonian Museum just isn't one museum. I used to get Smithsonian magazine. It's not just one museum. That Smithsonian is several different museums, all different topics. Like San Francisco here in California, where I'm located, they have an area like that where they have several. It reminds me of the Smithsonian because not only do they have their science museum, they also have their kids museum, and they've got all these different museums, and they're all in the same area. It's a lot like the Smithsonian. Now, remember at the beginning of the show, I talked about Ford's Theater, and that was where John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln for the assassination. Again, doghouse.com, and let's see what's happening over at Ford's. The stately Ford's Theater is famous for one of the most tragic events in American history, right? The very first assassination of an American president, Abraham Lincoln, who was watching a play the night of April 14th, 1865. John Wilkes Booth shot him, and Lincoln died the following day. It's been reported that the ghost of Lincoln was first sighted as early as 1869 or 1870, but some actors that have rehearsed on the stage to this day report a peaceful spiritual presence. Okay, Lincoln's ghost has been seen in various parts of D.C. Indeed, a woman who was present during the assassination was said to have been visited by Lincoln's apparition outside of her home in upstate New York. So Abraham Lincoln obviously gets around. Lafayette Square Park. I could be wrong with this, but if you remember, Lafayette Square Park figured prominently recently. I do believe it was Lafayette Square, where President Donald Trump went there to carry his Bible at this park, and I think this is where it was. When you step just north of the grounds of the White House, you step right into another haunted landmark, Lafayette Square Park. It's just across the street from the White House. The tree-filled square with a bold saluting statue of Andrew Jackson in the center, is surrounded by history, houses of passionate people who who came to the country to live, and who brought this country to life. The park is also site of a gruesome killing. Philip Barton Key II was mortally wounded in an altercation by a congressman friend after a letter accused Kay of carrying on an affair with his wife. Kay was shot and taken to the home owned by Benjamin Ogle Taylor. Here, he died of his injuries. The congressman was named Daniel Sickles, who was the first person to use the defense of temporary insanity successfully in court. He got away scot-free, but was haunted by the ghost of the man he killed in broad daylight in Lafayette Square Park. The man he shot, Philip Barton Kay, was the son of Francis Scott Key, the man famous for providing the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States of America. Pretty cool, pretty cool. If you guys like what you're hearing, double tap the screen. Please double tap the screen. Show me some love, okay? Show me some love. The Surratt House. Again, this is from doghouse.com. I was trying to take notes earlier, and it was just like, as you can tell, there's just so much information here. Just couldn't do it. The Surratt House was a lowly boarding house. So why is it haunted? And why is it famous? It turns out that it hosted many nefarious travelers who were plotting kidnapping, assassinations, and the overthrow of the government. One of those who stayed at the house was John Wilkes Booth. The proprietor was Mary Surratt, a Confederate activist with her own checkered past. Booth was a frequent visitor to the house and had gotten to know Surratt and her son over a lengthy period in the aftermath of the Lincoln assassination. Surratt was tried and convicted with conspiracy in her role in the death of Abraham Lincoln. She was executed by hanging on July 1865. Long after her death, she appears to be haunting the house and other locations around the city, demanding we hear calls of her innocence. Today, a Chinese restaurant named Walk and Roll occupies the Surratt House, where one of America's greatest conspiracies was hatched. Pretty cool, pretty wild. Good to see you guys at TikTok. Come on in. All right, the Decatur House. The Decatur House was named after Navy Admiral Stephen Decatur. This is one of the many stops around Lafayette Square. So dense in history, ghosts and stories in this square abound. Just about the corner from the Octagon House and across the street from the Cutts-Madison House, the Decatur House has some secrets of its own. It was here, in this elegant, neoclassical style house, that naval hero, explorer, and captain of U.S. warships, Commodore John Decatur, met his demise. He was challenged to a duel by a man he had been responsible for banishing to the Nordic countries for over 5 years. He had ripped him of his rank and his pay and continued to speak ill of him while he was in exile. One of the most unique features of the house is the boarded-up windows. It was said that the ghost of the Decatur House was seen looking out one of these windows so often that they were bricked up. Take it for what it's worth. Ghost stories are ghost stories, right? Double tap that screen, you guys. Double tap the screen. Show me some love on this stuff. Show me some love. The next stop on our little tour is the Cutts-Madison House. Dolly Madison, one of the most beloved first ladies of the U.S. Her name became a byword for elegant hospitality, good food, sweets. The colonial-style house was her home from 1837 to her death in 1849, and it is considered to be one of the many places that her ghost might be roaming. Welcoming visitors from beyond the end of her time on Earth, her ghost was often seen sitting on the elegant porch of the Cutts-Madison House, waving to passerby. Well, that's kind of cool, right? That's kind of cool. The mortgage of the home was given to then former President James Madison in 1828. The fourth President of the United States would later die at his Virginia residence known as Montpelier in 1836. The later building became the Cosmos Club, which started as a gentleman's club. whose slightly inebriated members could be seen doffing their hats at an unseen woman on the porch of the building. So I guess she's still there, right? I guess she's still there. Another place in Washington, as we make our tour around, is the Hayes Adam Hotel. Makes me want to go to Washington, D.C. to see all this stuff. It really does. There is only one of these 10 haunted American landmarks that you can sleep at without knowing someone very important. The Hayes Adam Hotel was converted into its current luxury accommodations by Joseph Manger, a national hotel magnate who also drew his last breath at the hotel. It was originally two houses of John Hay and Henry Adams. Both were active statesmen in Washington, D.C. Henry Adams' wife, Marion Hooper Adams, or Clover, committed suicide on December 6, 1885, at the house. Marion was a photographer in her own right. She used a chemical known as potassium cyanide. Oh my gosh. Potassium cyanide for developing her photographic work. However, it would also be responsible for her death, as she swallowed a lethal amount following a bout of depression following the death of her husband and several rumored infidelities by her husband. Her ghost is quite active in the Hay Adams house, walking down corridors, leaving the lingering almond scent of potassium cyanide distinctive, especially around the month of December, the anniversary of her death. Don't let the presence of Clover distract you from the appeal of this house. It is still a place to be seen and to see the elites of Washington, D.C. So now we've done this whole neighborhood around the White House, these different houses and stuff and places and parks that seem to have ghosts in them. So that's off that site. Okay, I think we talked about that one. So I'm trying to find ones we haven't talked about here when I go on this other site. Okay, cool. Here we go. All right, let me do an enlarging here because I'm blind. So let me do this so I can read these things. Otherwise, I can't read them. Which is why I'm not reading stuff live off TikTok right now. Your comments. Okay. It's good to be here. Good to be here, TikTok. All right. If you like what you're hearing, double tap that screen, please. Double tap that screen. And for you guys over here, please feel free to leave a comment or two. I'd appreciate it. Okay, we're going to continue our tour of Washington. You know, it's so much history. You know, when you get out of California, I gotta admit, California is a baby when compared to the rest of the United States, because there's a lot of stuff that goes way back in time, as far as like dates and everything. You know, we're here when California really started to take off. It was during the gold rush, so we're talking 1849, right? You know, for when we discovered gold. So that's when people started to really come out to California because they wanted to find gold and become rich and all that stuff. So compared to the rest of the United States, we're babies out here, right? Because I mean, stuff in Salem goes back to the almost the early 1800s and stuff. And compared to Europe, the United States is a baby. You know, totally babies. You know, we go back maybe. 1776 was the Declaration of Independence here. So we go back maybe to the 1600s. You know, Europe goes way back to the 1300s and whatnot. So we're like babies over here. But the further west you get in the United States, the more, the more younger we get, because California wasn't discovered for quite a while. So as we continue our tour of haunted Washington, D.C., we're going to talk about a cemetery. So we're going to be talking. The next stop is Oak Hill Cemetery, and this is coming from the site gwtoday.com. Okay, gwtoday.com, and this cemetery is located at 3001 R Street Northwest. All right, and for those of you that live out there or are going to visit, it's open daily. James Renwick, designer of the Smithsonian Castle, see that, and St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, built Oak Hill Cemetery Chapel in 1843, according to the cemetery's website. Okay, it is the district's only example of its Gothic revival design style. Okay, more peaceful than creepy, Oak Hill is the final resting place of many Washington notables, including Washington Post publisher Philip Graham and William Wilson Corcoran, founder of Corcoran's Gallery Art. It also houses the less well-known, but to our minds, equally admirable Jacob Russell, whose legacy was opening the United States' first wholesale ice cream house. I could live with that in 1851. I want to be friends with that family. Ice cream. I'm all about ice cream. Oak Hill Cemetery also was the setting of George Saunders' Man Booker Prize winning Lincoln. Let's just went that way. Hang on. Lincoln in the Bardo. The novel centers on the ghost of Abraham Lincoln's 11-year-old son Willie, who was briefly interred here before being moved to Springfield after his father's assassination in 1865. Okay. Another place in Washington. I think these are weird places and ghosties. Okay. The movie The Exorcist. Right? For people that have seen the movie The Exorcist, the steps themselves existed in Washington, D.C. And so here we are. The Exorcist Steps. 3600 Prospect Street, Northwest Washington. And let's take a look at this. See what it says about this place. A major character meets his end on the stairway in the iconic 1973 film The Exorcist. Accordingly, it's a pilgrimage site for horror fans and for athletes, many of whom get their cardio fix sprinting up and down a rise equivalent to the height of a 5-story building. According to Elizabeth Tucker's Ghost Lore of America college campuses, during filming, Georgetown University students charged would-be spectators $5 to watch a stuntman fall down 75 steps, fortunately padded with half an inch of rubber. Okay? In fact, the Exorcist author, William Peter Blatty, was a Georgetown student himself when he first heard its story of a 14-year-old boy in Mount Rainier, Maryland, said to be possessed by demons, a story that would become an inspiration for the head-spinning, Satan-afflicted teen Reagan McNeil. Cool. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. See, I would love to see these places. Someday, I'm going to travel. I really want to travel. I love traveling. It's a good way to do this. Okay, now next we're going to visit the old stone house, 3051 M Street, Northwest. The old stone, beautiful place. I wish I could show you guys these photos. The old stone house, the oldest structure on its original foundation in Washington, D.C., and was already 59 years old when the British invaded the city in 1814. Now renovated, it retains much of its original flooring, paneling, and walls. The house's age practically guarantees haunting rumors, and they have indeed prolificated. I can't say the word. There are at least 11 reported apparitions, including a stout woman in an antebellum gown, a small boy named Joey, and a German carpenter, according to Dennis William Hawk's Haunted Places. Dennis William Hawk lives in Sacramento. He's a good friend of mine. Haven't seen him for a long time, but he's a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. The old stone house also is rumored to contain one of DC's few malevolent spirits, known as George. It supposedly travels in an ominous coal spot and is said to have choked and pushed interlopers. But not to worry. George only manifests on the 3rd floor, and only the house's 1st floor kitchen, which hosts a historical exhibition, is currently open to visitors. That's kind of cool. Very cool. Some of these stories. I love it. I love going to old towns. There's a lot of old towns here in California that we visit as ghost hunters with California Haunts. And almost every main street, up and down almost every main street, every building has a ghost. And it's really fun to go in. Because sometimes, a lot of the time, they're just ghosts that are just hanging out. They're just watching us as we watch them. So it's really cool to do that. And I guess Washington's almost the same. This is Holyrood Cemetery, 2126 Wisconsin Avenue, Northwest. Open daily, dawn to dusk. Cool. All right, let's see what we got going on here. In its early days, in the 1830s and 40s, the cemetery, now known as Holyrood, was apparently notorious for sightings of the floating luminescent orbs known as witches' heads. I could have looked that up. I've never heard of that. Later, commentators suggested these may have been phosphorus and other gas emissions from the hundreds of unembalmed bodies in crude coffins lying unmarked in the free burial ground of the cemetery's northwest corner, which has been designated for burial of the poor. Among these unnamed dead are probably more than 100 enslaved African American people. A fact known only because until 1841, the cemetery's death registry noted whether the dead were enslaved and to whom they were enslaved to. The cemetery also is the final resting place for at least 500 free African Americans, some of whom were former slaves or the children of slaves, and most of whom were Catholic. Okay. The early 200-year-old cemetery, the nearly 200-year-old cemetery, had fallen into disrepair when it was rediscovered and revitalized by neighbors, students, and parishioners of the Associated Holy Trinity Church. The witches' heads are long gone, and there are few, if any, reports of ghost sightings. Holyrood is worth visiting. Instead, for its meditative atmosphere and for the chilling history it reflects, the Washington, D.C. before emancipation, when a record keeper could nonchalantly refer to an infant who had died after just a week of life as the offspring of Mrs. Brooks' slave, who stayed with Mr. L. Carberry. Now, what's interesting about these cemeteries like this is some of them have beautiful Victorian gardens, and there's one here in Sacramento. Going through this, we may be through these. Yeah. There's actually one in Sacramento that we call, that's off of a street called Broadway, that we call the Old City Cemetery, that has a lot of flowers planted in there, and it's designed like a Victorian cemetery. And what is really cool about it is that you can have picnics there. Yeah, it's a very nice place. Some people might have the attitude that dead people. No, we don't want to have picnics with dead people. We don't want to be with dead people. But I mean, that's something like in the old days, they used to do that. They used to go and have picnics in these cemeteries. It was like a family affair kind of thing. And I don't have a problem with it. The cemetery is very peaceful, so I like to go in there and sit and meditate sometimes. They have a real nice meditation garden and places like that. So I'm sure some of these cemeteries in Washington are the same because the dates on them, they go way, 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 way back. Way back, way back, way back. Okay? Way back. So let me look and see what we got here. See what else is on here. Here's the Capitol again. Let's see if there's anything different on this one. Because, sometimes... Yeah, see, there's different one on here. So let's read about the U.S. Capitol again, because there's going to be different information from different pages. So we're at gwtoday.com. All right, the Capitol has seen a lot of history, be free speculation about ghosts. Among its phantom inhabitants, see, now we're going to talk about different ghosts at the U.S. Capitol, are said to be assassinated President James Garfield, architect Pierre Charles Uinfant, and of course John Quincy Adams, who we talked about earlier, who died of a stroke. He was mid-speech. Okay, now this one says he was mid-speech on the floor of the House of Representatives, and he died 2 days later in an adjoining room. Capitol workers still report hearing from him straining to finish the speech, interrupted by his death. The building even has a crypt, apparently named purely for its vibes, since no one is actually buried there. I think when the situation happened back in January, the January 6th thing, I think they were taken downstairs, and I think it might have been, I don't know if they were in the crypt, but they were taken somewhere downstairs in the Capitol. Now, they're talking about not all the Capitol specters are human. Back to the cat. Supposedly prowls the 200-year-old building in times of crisis, growing enormous size and then vanishing. So it grows. So when they see it, it grows, and then it goes away. The apparition is even said to have the paw prints in the small Senate rotunda, where some original stones were replaced by concrete after a gas explosion in 1898. The paw prints are real, though their demonic origin is uncooperated. One chief tour guide of the U.S. Capitol Historical Society posits, delightfully, that this legend may have sprung from a night watchman awakened from a drunken stupor by a scratchy lick, finding himself staring up at a perfectly normal-sized cat from a very unusual perspective. You never know. You never know. See, that's why I'm going to read some of these, because some of these we've done tonight, but some of these probably have more details that somebody else looked up. So here is Rebecca Lafayette Square. Let's see what they say about this. And this is gwtoday.com. These days, Lafayette Square, directly in front of the White House, seems a more likely spot for a protest than a ghost. But in 1859, the square saw one of D.C.'s most notorious slayings committed in broad daylight. So they're back to talking about uh, Daniel Sickles. We already had a conversation about him. Let's see if there's anybody else in here. Mr. Sickles was the first case in the United States successfully used. Okay. All right. So yeah, they just talk about Daniel Sickles in here, so we're good. So let's see what else we got going here. Cause see, not everybody has the same stories. It's like with ghost hunting. Um, I might say something about ghosts, then another ghost hunter is going to say something about ghosts in the same spot. So nobody really has the same stories, and so we try to share as much as we can with these stories. Let me come back up here. That was kind of cool about the Exorcist thing. Let's see what we got. Well, let's look at the state capitol then. What do we got here? The Decatur House, the Octagon House. Let's see if we can get the state capitol. Oh, here we go. Let's go to the White House. Let's talk about the White House. And again, this is from gwtoday.com. Let's see if they've got different stuff. Let's see. People say it's haunted. Creeped out President Harry Truman and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, enthusiastic spiritualist, is said to have heard Thomas Jefferson playing the violin in the Yellow Oval Room, and Andrew Jackson stomping and cursing in the Rose Room. See, you're going to find different reports here. The White House's, now we're back to Abraham Lincoln, so let's see if there's anything new that we didn't talk about before. The White House's most well-documented phantom is Abraham Lincoln. The legend of Honest Abe's ghost may have originated with longtime White House footman Jerry Smith in the late 19th century, but it has since taken on a life of its own. First Lady Grace Coolidge, see here's one we haven't looked at, told magazines that she had seen Lincoln's specter gazing out a window of the room that had been his office. Nancy Reagan wrote in her memoirs that staffers attributed strange noises and missing items to Lincoln's ghost, and that the Reagan family dog would bark at the door of the Lincoln bedroom, refusing to enter. Even Hillary Clinton sometimes got the creeps. There is something about the house at night that you just feel like you are summoning up the spirits of all the people who had lived here and worked there and walked through the halls there. Hillary told Rosie O'Donnell. But Winston Churchill may have had the best, or at least the most vivid Lincoln encounter. According to Mark Nesbitt in Civil War Ghost Trails, Stories from America's Most Haunted Battlefields, Winston Churchill, during his visits in the 1940s, never liked sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom. During one visit, after taking a hot bath, accompanied by a glass of scotch and omnipresent cigar, he emerged from the tub and strolled naked into an adjoining room, where he ran right into Mr. Lincoln, who was leaning on the mantel above the fireplace. They looked at each other in the face. Churchill was embarrassed. Lincoln simply vanished. Okay. Let's talk about the Octagon House again. See, there's different things in here, and I kind of figured there would be. The Octagon House has long had the reputation of being haunted. Author, socialite Mary Clemmer Ames wrote in 1873. The looming mansion where James and Dolly Madison lived after the burning of the White House. We talked about that in the home headquarters of the it's the home headquarters of the American Institute of Architects. And visitors still report cold spots and strange sensations in the house's three-story spiral staircase. Others report paranormal manifestations that include poundings on the wall, floating spectral lights, and the inexplicable ringing of servants' bells. It is an authenticated fact that every night at the same hour, all the same bells ring at once. Ames wrote, neglecting to say who did the authenticating. Okay. Boringly, historians have debunked the enduring legend that multiple members of the original builders' family died in the house, including the gruesome rumor that a young daughter was killed on those creepy stairs. But just before the Octagon house's ghosts met their ends elsewhere doesn't mean just because they met their ends elsewhere. Why am I going to talk tonight? Just because the ghosts met their ends elsewhere doesn't mean that they couldn't have returned to walk its halls. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. See, so again, like I said, there's just different stories about these things. Let's look at the Decatur house before again. Commodore Stephen Decatur was a celebrated naval hero. Let's see. So the house was designed by renowned architect Benjamin Henry Latrobe and completed in 1819. It was the first residential home in the White House neighborhood and is now the home of the White House Historical Association. But just 14 months after moving in, Decatur was challenged to a duel. This is the one where they had the duel. And 200 years later, his spirit said to gaze out the window, right, facing 8th Street. Okay, so just as he did on the night, facing 8th Street, just as he did on the night before the fatal duel. Windows, some say, they're bricked over, okay? Unfortunately, for the spooky legend, Decatur certainly never stared mournfully out of his windows, because they were never not bricked over. Okay, so you don't know. See, things change. These particular windows were designed blind or bricked up to accommodate the house's elaborate chimney and flue system, while still adhering to the architectural sensibilities of the time. We admit they still look pretty creepy, though. But, I mean, there's legends, so, I mean, the legends have to come from somewhere, and that's the thing. And, like, even me as a ghost hunter, when I go out, I have to sort through all this stuff, just like you got these two different versions of these legends, right? So, who knows? That's where you gotta just say, who knows? Here's another one about the Hay Adams Hotel. Let's see what's going on here. Marion Clover Hooper Adams. Okay. So the hotel's supposed apparition was also a celebrity in her own day. Marion Clover Hooper Adams, a socialite and accomplished amateur photographer. Right. This is the one that was using, that was developing photos and stuff, and I guess she offed herself because she over depression. And it says that she grew up in Massachusetts, transcendentalist circles, and was rumored to be the inspiration for Henry James' Daisy Miller in Portrait of a Lady. The Hay Adams was originally commissioned as a home for Adams and her husband, Henry Adams, but she did not live to see it completed. At the age of 42, she committed suicide using potassium cyanide, a darkroom chemical she often used to develop. Though Adams never actually lived in the building, her presence is still felt. Her presence still felt here. The chandelier at the entryway to the hotel apparently sways at random, and the scent of almonds, or is it cyanide, lingers in the halls. With living guests as distinguished as the Hay Adams hosts, it's understandable that staff are reticent on the subject of hauntings. Since tours are not offered, you have to tag along one of DC's many unaffiliated ghost tours to hear the legends in detail. Okay, well, cool. That's what I mean by reading this. By reading this website, the GW Today, we're getting different views of what's going on there, on these hauntings, if there are hauntings. So it's rather interesting, when you go through this stuff. And nice. So I think we've gotten through everything that I had. We got 10 minutes to go, so I'm just going to sit here. We're going to talk about this area and some of the history here. Let me get back into here so I can get over to back to my main stream. There we go. Hello, Jerry. How's it going? Hello, Marisa. I see you there. Hello, everybody else that's lurking out there. Hello, everybody on TikTok. Anyway, so Sacramento is the capital of California. At one time, it wasn't. At one time, the capital of California was 30 miles up the hill in Auburn, up in the foothills. And the original state capital is still located there. Is it haunted? I don't know. But there's a restaurant across the street called Latitudes. And for years, as I was growing up, the stories were always pretty prevalent of there being a female ghost in this place. And so, of course, my team goes out. We decided to investigate it. Got out there, and a lot of the rumors were that you would smell lavender, the temperature would go down, you would smell lavender, objects would move around this place, and things like that. So we go out there and we're investigating this, and now we got a couple of really good Class A EVPs out of there. And it turns out later on, and some good friends of mine brought this up, that they finally found out that the place really isn't haunted. It's been um, the stories were built up to like bring people in to eat there and and dine there. But it's interesting because what happened was, and I guess the mind can do this stuff. And I had my friends, the Constantinos, who you've probably seen on TV, had a theory that some EVPs were created by mental. If you thought hard enough, you could create the EVPs. There would leave an imprint there. And what happened was, and this is what they think happened at Latitudes, was that everybody that has gone in there, and heard the stories, would go in there and right away you'd be looking around for the ghost and thinking about the supposed ghost that was in there. And that's what they think happened there was there been so many people going into this restaurant doing this that it left a lasting imprint. And so the ghost technically came to life because the people that went in there were thinking about this ghost, right? It came from the minds, which is kind of interesting. And so it was kind of a letdown for a lot of people, but still, I think today, there's people that still believe. Hello, William. How are you? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit here so I can read those comments. So that was one thing that they were in the process before they both passed away of studying, especially with their EVPs, that we could create those EVPs ourselves and then create those beings ourselves because we were so intent on wanting to hear voices of particular individuals, right? Okay. Just like with dowsing rods. I mean, the thing with dowsing rods is, do they actually work? Because the person holding the rods themselves, not as far as manipulating them with their own hands, but do they actually work, or is it the person asking the questions, thinking in their head, yes and no answers, to trigger the rods? So that's an interesting question that's been out there for a while too. People using dowsing rods. But as far as places like Latitudes go, or places that maybe weren't haunted, that I'm always open to different. Even as a paranormal investigator, I'm always open to those different possibilities and the thoughts that, yeah, maybe we could sit there. Like my father used to have this saying when I was growing up, that if you wish long enough and you hope long enough, your dream will come true, right? So maybe this is a case of people going in and wishing and hoping that a location is haunted, and then you get more people, and over the years there's thousands of people that go into this place, or hundreds or whatever, and it leaves an imprint. The mind, the thoughts leave an imprint on there, and so it starts to become a real ghost, And I've heard of other reports the same thing from different places around the United States, where there's been studies about this, and that it turns out that the famous ghosts that were there were actually created via stories, and then the people that visited these places, thought about these stories real hard, and then left imprints there, and gradually over the years, these ghosts would appear and stuff because that's how the people's thoughts were. It was just enhanced by the energy. So it's kind of interesting when you think about that. It's kind of a different way to look at paranormal. So then that brings up the question of, if what we're investigating is actually a ghost, or is it something that the people in the house or the people in the business, dreamed up, and then it just manifested into this from all these dreams and all these thoughts. But unfortunately, um, maybe I'll start carrying on the studies with the EVP. I don't know, but the Constantinos were the leading EVP experts, and they were the ones that were talking about this kind of thing happening, and being able to manifest this via EVPs. All right, we're coming down to the end, and I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Ghost of Washington. I'm sorry I ran out of info on it. I thought I had more for you, and apparently it went faster than I thought. And I want to thank doghouse.com and gwtoday.com, because that's where I got my info from tonight, and I really appreciate that. Tomorrow we're shifting gears. Tomorrow we're going to be talking with Dr. Elliot Haymoff. Dr. Haymoff is an expert, and he's done a lot of research on the Apollo moon landings and the Apollo space trips. And he also has information about things that happened during those moon landings and NASA secrets. So we're going to be talking with him. That'll be at 6:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, right here. For you guys over on TikTok, I will not be live tomorrow, but you can come visit and watch at youtube.com/ at California Haunts Radio. Because I don't have the capability to do TikTok on shows where I have guests, just when I'm flying solo like tonight. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody coming in. And if you have any questions in the chat room or any comments, please feel free to do that. And before I sign off, I would really appreciate it, and I can answer your questions and stuff. Just make a couple of announcements. Later on tonight, I will be back live at 10 on TikTok. I'm going to be doing some tarot readings, some 3-card readings, past, present, and future. And I'm just like I'm everybody else on TikTok, just doing it for fun, to make some extra money and things like that. So I'll be over on TikTok tonight at 10 p.m. doing that, 10 p.m. Pacific, doing that. I will also be working tonight on the Halloween event, the first Halloween event that we are going to do, that my team is going to do via California Haunts Radio. It'll be the first show of Ghosts Stories in the Dark. And that will be, I don't even have a date set. I got to figure out the date tonight and all the details for that. But I will be getting that arranged, and that will be $15 a piece. It'll be a special event to launch the show, and it's also a Halloween event. So I'll have that information up for you guys sometime tomorrow to check out, to come over to that online event. So that'll be a fun event as well. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions for me, now is the time to ask. I've been doing this for 25 years, ghost hunting. I've been doing the radio show for almost 18, 19 years. And I love doing it. I love presenting information for everybody. And it's just something I like to do. Little by little I like to do. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming, and everybody that's followed us, everybody that's stuck with us to this point. Doing this show, especially this version of the show, which I've been doing for 5 years, which is on video, right? Because we were on Blog Talk Radio all those years. And so I want to thank everybody who followed us and all that. And there's a lot coming up. There's a lot of changes coming up to the show. I think they're for the better, and in the way we do things. And in the paranormal team, of course, we're going to be getting together, doing some investigations, and getting back out there and doing what we love to do, which is going out and help people and educate people about the paranormal. That's what it's all about. It's not about money. It's not about anything. It's about getting out and educating people with their paranormal issues, and helping them solve problems that may not be paranormal. They, may be something natural causing the problems. So that is part of what we do with this team. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I will see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Have a great evening over there, and bye.